Captain America is the true hero for America, right? What if he wasn't? Welcome to the Complete Story Search. I take trade paperbacks and single issues, and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then I read them dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panel, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. Yes, before you all comment down below, this was the big reveal that came out last May, and I always recommend reading it for yourself to get the full story of what's happening, as I'm only grazing over some of the key plot points here. I won't mention what the big reveal is in case you somehow avoided it, but I was waiting for the story to have its first major arc before we would continue on and actually do it. I wanted to see if it was playing a larger role in the Marvel Universe. Well, if you didn't catch the Civil War II video, it's starting to play a role, so let's begin. This takes place after the Avengers standoff storyline in which Steve Rogers was granted his superhuman abilities and youth once again. In 1926, a woman is being pulled around the streets of New York by her husband. She asks him to stop, but he's also drunk and begins to ask her if she's laughing at him. Confused, she asks what is he talking about, and he says, "I saw the way you were looking at your deadbeat no-job husband." She asks him not to do this in front of their son, and he tells her, "This is good. Our boy can see a real man." And she asks, "Have you seen a real man lately?" So he backhands her until a woman in a red scarf walks over telling Joseph that he should help that woman up. He tells her to mind her own business, and he swings at her so she catches his fist and punches him back. As she helps the woman up, she introduces herself. "I'm Sinclair Elisa, and you're Sarah Rogers, right?" She looks at the boy asking, "Who is that brave soul?" Back in the current day, Steve Rogers, aka the original Captain America, comes crashing through a window. He begins fighting with the individuals on the train, and Sharon Carter calls him up on the comms. "Steve, it's Sharon. You know, I thought I recognized that voice. Do you see the bomb?" "I see the bomb," Steve says, looking through the window at the suicide bomber, a poor man that was down on his luck when the Red Skull convinced him to do this. He tells her that he's almost done on the train, and that he can double back to stop the Hydra agents at the staging area. But Sharon smirks. "Steve, we talked about this. I remember arguing. You were no longer alone in the field. You have a team and they went back for you. Remember Jack Flag and Free Spirit?" Back at the staging area, both of them leap into combat, punching and kicking. Back on the train, Steve wraps up the thugs and then sees the train has been detached. So he runs full speed to the edge and he leaps over to the other car. With nothing in his way, he walks over to the suicide bomber. "You don't have to do this, son. There's a better way. We talked to your mother. She wants you to come home." "Look around, Cap. Don't you see it? What they've done to us? That's why I have to finish this. There's nowhere left to go. Hail Hydra." And he presses the button. The train car explodes in Steve's face as he puts up his shield, throwing him off of the train. And with that, he heads back to the base where he sits with Sharon on the deck of the helicarrier. She jokes that before he got old and then young again, he knew how to duck punches. And he tells her it's the new shield. He's getting used to it. They joke and he explains that the new Hydra is really bothering him. What they believe in and what they do. It's really getting under his skin. She tells him not to let it get to him like that. People fall apart, they go astray, but she loves how he tries. She leans in to kiss him, and then she snuggles on his shoulder as they watch the sunset. Jack Flag, Free Spirit, and Rick Jones all have a beer to celebrate, and then news from Maria Hill comes down. She's found Baron Zemo. S.H.I.E.L.D. has been looking for him ever since the incident at Pleasant Hill, where he broke free and tried to control the Cosmic Cube, going by the name Kobik. He escaped with Slavig, the doctor that S.H.I.E.L.D. had to use to research the Cosmic Cube, and they've been looking for little Kobik together ever since. Right now, Zemo is in Bagelia, a city with no laws or rules, which is basically supervillain central. Right now, Zemo is standing on a rooftop with a few villains that he could muster up. His plan is to stage a coup against Red Skull. He wants to make a better side of Hydra and take back the glory. That's when we see it's only 3 people that have arrived, and Zemo rubs his face. "I can't believe I'm starting over like this." "Well, don't worry, Baron Zemo. I think I can save you the effort," Steve shouts as he leaps in with Jack Flag and Free Spirit. Zemo runs for his ship while the new Hydra agents begin to fight it out with all of the heroes, and Steve runs for the ship, leaping onto the roof of it. He begins to walk up the ship as Zemo is taking off, with Slavig tied up next to him. He jumps onto the ship, and we have the age-old fight of Zemo versus Steve Rogers until Zemo drops the cargo hatch, almost throwing Steve out of the ship. He grips onto the edge of the ship while Jack Flag sees him and realizes Steve needs his help. Zemo sees that he has Steve beat, so he raises his sword to drop him off the ship, only to have Jack Flag punch him and help Steve up. Jack sees the scientist and the defeated Zemo, and he tells Steve, "That's awesome! We accomplished the mission!" Steve looks down at the ground. "Damn it. Is everything okay, Steve?" "No, it isn't. I'm sorry, Jack." He puts his hand on Jack's shoulder, confusing him. Back in 1926, with that woman that saved Sarah Rogers and her young son, Steve, she wanted to show Sarah something. something of interest, a group that she might be interested in, the Hydra Society. And back on the ship in the current day, Cap throws Jack Flag out of the cargo door that's still open. Steve regrets what he had to do, as Jack was a hero, a true hero, but a price must be paid. He walks forward to see Slavig. Hail Hydra. So how did this happen? How did our true and faithful Steve Rogers turn sides? It all started back with Red Skull when he had the Cosmic Cube. Just when he felt that he had won, Steve broke into his hideout and a fight ensued between them that ended with Steve shattering the Cosmic Cube. Those pieces were then collected and studied in a lab at S.H.I.E.L.D., where they reacted and killed everyone that was studying them. Maria Hill then brought in Dr. Slavig to see what he could do with what remained, because what remained was a little girl. The cube had given life to itself, and just as any child newly born, she went to where she felt loved and safe. And that was the Red Skull. She arrived there asking if the Red Skull remembered her, and he ordered her shot. As a matter of fact, he even told his thugs to aim a little lower if they're shooting at a child. The bullets first bounced off of her, and that's when his daughter Sin decided that she would stop the child, and once again, the bullets didn't work. And instead, Kobik healed her face. Red Skull demanded to know what was going on, and Kobik told him to stop yelling at her. She thought that he would be nice like he was before she was broken, when they made a world together. That rang a few bells in Red Skull's head, and he finally realized that this was his Cosmic Cube. Confused and upset, she asked Red Skull if they could be friends again, and with a grin, he told her, "Of course." Since S.H.I.E.L.D. had her, Red Skull had her going back there for their testing so that he could spy on the operations against him. She tells him everything, and then when asked if anyone suspects, she explains no one knows what her and Slavig are doing. Red Skull hears a name and he asks, "Who is that?" So Kobik showed him. She warped Red Skull to the S.H.I.E.L.D. base and into Slavig's lab, where he kneels before Red Skull, declaring him supreme leader. Using Xavier's brain, which he took years before this, Red Skull looked into Slavig's memories to see what Kobik had done. She altered everything. His entire history had been changed. In his new life, Slavig was a trained Hydra agent, and he grew up worshiping the supreme leader. But these weren't just new memories for him, it was his actual past. His actual timeline had been altered to make this a reality. So Red Skull had an idea. To stage the entire Pleasant Hill event. Make a prison using Kobik so that the prisoners could break out and Zemo could think that he was free. This would allow Red Skull to infiltrate the entire event as the priest. He steered the events to make it so that Steve Rogers would go looking for Kobik and save him from his beating at the hands of Crossbones. Because Red Skull wanted Kobik to do something to Steve Rogers that she did compassionately, not something that she was forced to do. And just as Steve was about to die, Kobik altered him. She restored his youth and his powers, yes, but she rewrote his timeline in history. She made him Hydra because Red Skull wanted to rule Earth with Steve Rogers at his side, and now he had it. Back in the current day, Steve takes off his shirt and he rubs the Hydra symbol onto his chest as he calls up the Red Skull. He then asks for forgiveness. The Red Skull tells him, "That will depend on your actions in Begilia." After throwing Jack Flag out of the plane, he set and turned it on autopilot and removed Slavig's mouth gag. Slavig smiled. "So it's true! Supreme Leader said you would join us, but I didn't believe." "I serve the one true Hydra, Dr. Slavig." "Right, not Zemo's charade." "Well, this is wonderful. Let's go back to looking for Kobik. I am so eager to serve the Supreme Leader." "Doctor, I think you misunderstand why I'm here." It takes a second for Slavig to get it, but he finally does. "Oh no, 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 no." Steve walks over and grabs the doctor. "Supreme Leader would like to thank you for your continued service and tireless pursuit of knowledge on his behalf." And then as the doctor was calling out, Steve jumped off the plane, killing both Slavig and Zemo. At least, that's the story that he told Red Skull to make him happy with the answers. Steve asked if Slavig could have been useful in their search for Kobik, and Red Skull tells him, "No, because Kobik is gone. If not, she would have returned to me after Pleasant Hill." And Steve tells the Red Skull, "There have been complications. Jack Flag lives." Everyone showed up to rescue him, but Taskmaster arrived to fight against Sharon Carter. Luckily, Steve returned to beat down Taskmaster, and as martial law was called, they got Jack Flag out of the area. Red Skull screams at Steve, "He's alive!" "I didn't think that he could survive a fall like that, but Jack's strong, always has been." "You should have blown him up with the rest of them." "It wasn't an option, Supreme Leader. Jack is strong, he would have been a problem. Besides, he deserved a real funeral." "Deserved? Deserved? What do I deserve? I am your Supreme Leader. I am your life. You are too soft, Rogers. It is clouding your judgment like that with the suicide bomber. Why did you try to save him?" I don't understand, Supreme Leader. The mission was intended to fail. I didn't want to lose a loyal recruit." Red Skull hangs up, and Steve begins to walk out of the comms room. He sees a man sitting there and he asks him, "Dr. Slavig, Are you ready to do what needs to be done? Steve explains that S.H.I.E.L.D. is tearing itself apart after the fallout of Pleasant Hill, and the superheroes are now fighting amongst themselves thanks to something known as Civil War. And when Dr. Slavig asks him about Kobik, Steve explains that he knows where Kobik is. She's looking up to Bucky and working with the Thunderbolts. He then reveals that Red Skull wanted to kill Dr. Slavig, but Steve sees a bigger purpose for Dr. Slavig. Steve intends to kill the Red Skull. He feels that he is a poor leader for Hydra, and he needs the Doctor's help. Now, immediately following this, we go into the things that happened during Civil War II, in which Steve basically pushed the events to happen the way they did. He created a situation where Carol was questioning what she was doing, and she was fighting against Tony Stark. It was quite interesting, and go check out Civil War II if you haven't seen it yet. But now that Civil War II is out of the way, and this is out of the way, it's time for a lot more Marvel, and I hope you guys are excited. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you like dramatically read comic books, and give this video a like if you enjoy what we did here. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Comicstorian, and we can chat anytime, and I'll see you next time right here.